The moment Sterling walked in, 15 minutes late and chewing a mint like he was bored of existing, I knew exactly how this review was going to go. He didn't bother with a greeting, didn't shake my hand, didn't even look at the massive stack of folders I'd spent 3 straight nights preparing. He just slouched into the leather chair like it owed him rent and said, "Let's make this quick." I slid the contract summary across the table with the kind of smile you wear to a funeral, the funeral being, in this case, my last ounce of patience. Tech signed the 5-year renewal, I said, full package, 10.2 million. I negotiated a 7% increase without triggering their board's red lines. That puts us 23% over Q3 projections. Sterling glanced at the top page, then tossed it back like it offended him. That's expected. You're senior account director, not a magician. I swallowed the burn in my throat. There was also an understanding that I'd receive a performance bonus for securing the largest account renewal in company history. That was stated in writing last year. The results, he said, dragging out the words like they were beneath him, belonged to the company. Not you. There it was. Not a no. Not a maybe next quarter. Just a clean slice through my worth. Like I was one of his disposable coffee cups. No acknowledgement of 18 months of 3 a.m. strategy calls with Tech. No memory of the time I flew red-eye to Colorado just to handhold their panicked CTO through a rollout bug that wasn't even our fault. No credit for keeping that account when every department around me was drowning in turnover. The results belonged to the company. I could feel my ears ringing. Not with rage, not yet. Rage needs oxygen. What I felt was a vacuum, a total airless clarity. I smiled, not with my teeth, with my bones. Understood, I said. One word, then I stood, gathered my folders carefully without a tremble and walked out of the glass box where dreams went to suffocate. Sterling didn't follow. He didn't ask what I meant. That was his mistake. He thought silence meant surrender. He had no idea I'd just declared war. And hey, if this twist of corporate karma has you hooked, help me hit my first ever 10,000 subscribers. It's free, takes a second, and keeps the stories coming. Thank you for being part of this wild ride. By the time I reached my car in the parking lot, the numbness had worn off and something hotter took its place. Not the kind of anger that flares and fizzles, this was the slow burn kind. The kind that keeps logs in a shed for winter and waits for the match. I didn't tell anyone I was quitting that day. I didn't need a dramatic speech or an HR form stamped in red. I needed a plan. Sterling thought that clause in my contract, the infamous non-compete, was enough to keep me docile. It was airtight, sure, said I couldn't work with any active client or competitor for 24 months, said any violation would trigger arbitration. He probably printed that paragraph on a throw pillow. But what Sterling didn't understand is that loyalty has a half-life, and mine had just expired. That night, I opened a new Word doc. Title, Exit Strategy, no logos, no letterhead, just bullet points, black coffee, and revenge marinating in silence. Next morning, I submitted my resignation via email. No fanfare, no bridge left unburned. Just a single sentence, effective immediately. He didn't reply. Not until 2:47 p.m. when his assistant finally emailed back with a smug little attachment reminding me of the non-compete. And a thinly veiled line, "We trust you will honor your contractual obligations." That was corporate speak for "we own you now." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I deleted the email, closed my laptop, and whispered, "Not for long." Sterling didn't even bother calling me into his office this time, just fired off a 5-word reply to my resignation, acknowledged. Per Clause 17b attached. Clause 17b, the albatross, the goddamned leash. I clicked the PDF like it might bite. Same bastardly thing I remembered. Employee shall not engage in any business that competes with company interests, nor directly or indirectly solicit, service, or accept business from any company clients for a period of 24 months from date of termination. Even bolded it as if that made it holier. What they didn't bold was the subclause buried 3 pages down, but that wasn't for now. That was for later. Right now, I had to make my exit look boring, dignified even, like I was going to do yoga in Sedona and learn to forgive people. I walked into the office at 9 a.m. sharp the next day, a smile stapled onto my face like everything was fine. The moment my heels hit the linoleum, conversations died mid-sentence. I could hear keyboards suddenly start clacking just to fill the dead air. Marcy from legal gave me the kind of look you reserve for someone who's been diagnosed with something terminal. Evan in accounts just nodded without making eye contact, like I was a ghost already. And Ben, poor, gullible, sweet summer child Ben, leaned in and whispered, "Are you sure about this?" "I've never been surer," I said, passing him the sealed envelope with my transition file. "Tell Sterling I said good luck." The transition document I left behind was technically flawless. Timelines, budgets, points of contact. Everything a clueless executive team could need to run Tech into the ground. But it was also a masterclass in omission. Nowhere in that packet did it mention that Maria, Tech's operations lead, was allergic to the phrase low-hanging fruit, that the CFO only signed off on budgets if you added a footnote about sustainability, that their VP of engineering would kill any project that involved an acronym he didn't invent, because you can't document a relationship, You can't footnote trust. You either built it or you didn't. And Sterling? He didn't even know who the Aura Tech VP was, let alone what color his tie meant on board meeting days. Around noon, Sterling strutted out of his corner office like a man stepping over an invisible coffin. Sarah, he said with that slick, vacuous smirk, I just want to personally acknowledge your service. You've been a reliable asset, but let's be clear, Aura Tech is a company client. And we will, of course, enforce the terms of your agreement. Of course, I said, holding his stare like a mirror. You should. He didn't know what to do with that. He thought he'd cornered me, caged me, that this was just a story of someone running out of options. I let him enjoy that thought. For the next hour, I packed my things like I wasn't bleeding out on the inside. Every stapler, every pen, every post-it I'd scribbled dreams on. I even left behind my nameplate, still warm from years of trying too damn hard. Before I left, I walked one last lap around the office. No goodbyes, just eye contact. Silent, surgical. Let them decide if it was bravery or madness that made me walk. Back home, I cracked open a beer at 3:14 p.m. and stared at the blinking cursor on a blank screen titled, What Comes Next? It didn't blink back. Day 3 of unemployment hit like a cold slap to the soul. The adrenaline had worn off, and what was left was the echo. Silence has a weight to it. When you've spent 15 years with your phone surgically attached to your palm, silence feels radioactive. No calendar invites, no Slack pings, no urgent emails flagged at 3 a.m. Just me, my too quiet house, and a cat that kept giving me side-eye like she knew I'd just torched my career with a Bic lighter. I sat at the dining room table in the same hoodie 3 days in a row, watching the cursor blink on my laptop like it was taunting me. Every Google search felt like both a lifeline and a eulogy. How to start an LLC Ohio. Self-employed health insurance options. What does COBRA actually cover? Is wine a deductible if consumed during branding brainstorms? Registering the business was the easy part. $100 and 3 forms. Done. I named it Electra Consulting, something with a little bite, a little myth. Then I realized I needed a website, a logo, an actual offer. I built a site from a clunky Squarespace template that looked like it belonged to a motivational speaker who also sold diet pills. Still, it loaded, and it had a contact form. That felt like something. Then came the real fun spreadsheets. I stared down the barrel of my finances like they owed me an apology. Severance, minimal. Savings, solid but not forever solid. Rent, utilities, groceries, insurance, I gave everything a color code in the sheet, then watched the red cells bleed into each other like a slow hemorrhage. By week 2, I'd reached the negotiation phase of despair. Maybe I could freelance. Maybe I could pivot into tech writing. Maybe I could go full eat, pray, love and disappear into the forest with a Wi-Fi hotspot and a vengeance blog. But every time I opened LinkedIn, my stomach twisted into a Möbius strip. Sterling's smug face still topped our company's culture spotlight post. Beneath it, 3 middle managers were clapping emojis like seals performing for sardine crumbs. That night, halfway through a lukewarm bowl of boxed mac and cheese, my phone buzzed. Unknown number, just a text. They reassigned your transition budget to the exec retreat. Good luck, no name, but I didn't need one. I knew the voice behind that sentence. Dry, efficient, brilliant with numbers. Megan, finance analyst with the poker face of a poker dealer and a quiet disdain for bullshit. I stared at the text like it might self-destruct. They'd taken the 6-figure client onboarding budget I'd built for Aura Tech, months of forecasts, ramp-ups, contingency planning, and flushed it down the drain so the C-suite could sip pina coladas at some leadership offsite. Probably to brainstorm how to innovate synergy or whatever the hell MBA word salad they were peddling this quarter. That one sentence from Megan didn't just confirm what I suspected. Crystallized it. They were incompetent. Not malicious, not Machiavellian. Just terminally, chronically, hilariously inept. I laughed, out loud. A real, unhinged bark that scared the cat under the couch. If they were this stupid, they wouldn't just mishandle Aura Tech. They'd smother it, drown it in buzzwords and missed deadlines. And when the call came, because it would come, it wouldn't be me knocking on any doors. It would be them. All I had to do was stay invisible. Stay quiet and stay ready. It started with a voicemail. Hey Sarah, it's Maria from Aura Tech. Just wanted to catch up, no agenda, just would love to hear how you're doing. Call me when you have a sec. I listened to it 3 times. Not because I didn't understand what she said. Maria never wasted syllables. I listened because I could hear the wobble in her voice beneath the professionalism. It wasn't panic, not yet, but something was off. Like a hairline crack in a windshield before the frost sets in. I waited 3 hours before calling her back. Just enough time to look casual, not desperate. I even made sure I had a cold coffee in hand to sound relaxed when I picked up. Maria, I said, as if I'd just found a 20 in an old coat. Wow, it's so good to hear from you. She sighed with the weight of someone who hadn't slept properly in a week. You too. I figured you could use a little voice from the trenches. I let out a half laugh, depends on which trench you mean. She didn't bite. Instead, she launched into small talk, kids, whatever renovation nightmare was unfolding in her kitchen. But it was all scaffolding, I could feel it. Eventually, she shifted. So your replacement team, she said, carefully neutral like she was afraid the walls had ears. Interesting folks. Oh, I offered, polite and flat. They sent us a deck last week that had our product roadmap inverted. And by inverted, I mean the 2025 goals were in Q2 of this year. When I pointed it out, they said they'd meant to be aspirational. I almost choked on my coffee. She continued. And then Steve, your old VP, he called me Michelle twice on the call. My name's on the damn Zoom. I made a low, sympathetic noise, the kind therapists make right before they hand you a tissue. She kept going, not outright complaining, but circling the drain. Missed deliverables, duplicated tasks, tone-deaf emails. It was like watching someone describe a bad dream in real time. I said nothing useful. Just a memhum, and that's rough, and wow, I'm really sorry to hear that because I wasn't there to fix it. I was there to listen like a locked door with a keyhole just wide enough to whisper through. At one point, she paused. Anyway, I just wanted to say we really appreciated what you built. It had a rhythm. We trusted you. That line sat in the space between us for a beat too long. I gave her the lightest touch of bait. Well, I've been exploring some independent consulting, I said, real casual, but in a totally different niche, of course. I could feel the spark on the other end of the line, just a flicker. The beginning of a match being struck. Oh, what kind of niche? Strategic advisory. More agile, small team stuff. Not really competitive with, the full stack model. I added a shrug to my tone, just enough to sound like I hadn't thought it through. Like I hadn't built my entire website around that very phrase. Maria didn't press. She knew better. She was corporate trained, same as me. We'd both been in too many boardrooms to walk into something head-on, but her goodbye was warmer than it needed to be. And the last thing she said was, let me know if you ever, unniche. When the call ended, I didn't smile. I stared at the wall for a long minute, heartbeat hammering a little too loud in my ears. The first tremor had come. And if the cracks were showing now, just wait until the pressure built. Jill Callahan's office looked exactly like the kind of place you go to destroy someone quietly. No degrees on the wall. No cutesy little signs about girlbossing. Just matte black bookshelves filled with legal tomes and a single bonsai tree that had been trimmed into submission. The woman herself didn't even offer coffee. She just motioned for me to sit and opened a red folder with surgical precision. So she said, flipping through the pages, "This is the infamous 17B. I nodded, the ball and chain. She scanned, lips barely moving. Her brow didn't twitch once. I'd picked her for exactly this reason. Jill had a reputation for being brutal in depositions and allergic to corporate puffery. Once cross-examined a Fortune 500 VP into tears over an NDA breach. She was my kind of assassin. After 5 full minutes of silence, she leaned back in her chair and tapped one long finger against the claws. Okay, first off, it's aggressive. Overreaching, actually, but enforceable. No soliciting current or past clients. No competing services. No hiring their people. 24 months. I felt my stomach drop into my knees. But she added, eyes glittering like a scalpel catching light, there's a gap. I blinked. A gap? She flipped to a footnote on page 7. The language says you cannot solicit or accept business from their clients. It does not say anything about being approached for services your former employer does not offer. That's your keyhole, my breath caught. They'd need to prove you reached out first, she continued. That you're offering services that directly compete. So don't pitch. Don't advertise anything that looks like what you did before. Redefine yourself. Make your offerings so niche they can't touch it. I felt the beginnings of something unfamiliar, a smile I didn't have to fake. What if, I said slowly, I positioned my firm around strategic micro-implementation, not full service? Just the early phase architecture stuff, project recovery, alignment workshops, stakeholder recon. Jill grinned like a shark. That's not what your old firm sells. You're golden, as long as they call you first, and they will, judging by how badly they're screwing the pooch, you're in the clear. But document everything. Every email, every timestamp. This only works if we can build a clean chain of evidence. I left her office with a folder, a retainer fee I didn't want to think about, and the first real hit of oxygen I'd had in weeks. That night, I tore my old website down to the studs. New tagline read, Electra Consulting, Targeted Recovery for Enterprise Drift. No mention of account management, no hint of end-to-end service, just surgical strikes for chaotic environments. It was half marketing, half legal shield. I added 3 new pages, what we do, what we don't do, and how to reach us if you must. Every word was a trapdoor. Every phrase was a layer of armor. I wasn't just building a business anymore. I was building a legal fortress disguised as a lighthouse, because the storm was coming, and I wanted them to see exactly where I was, just close enough to be terrifying and just far enough to be untouchable. The second time Maria called, she didn't lead with pleasantries. No small talk. No kitchen renovation updates. Just 5 clipped words. Is now a bad time? I sat up straighter, laptop open to my expense sheet, still wearing pajama bottoms under a half-decent blouse I'd put on for a phantom Zoom call that never came. No, I said, voice tight. What's going on? She sighed, deep and hollow, like a balloon finally giving up the ghost. They broke it, she said. Broke what? The data stream integration for our North Star launch. It's dead. Gone. They overwrote the test environment with a sandbox version from another client, then tried to roll it back without a checkpoint, corrupted the entire pipeline, and they didn't notice for 48 hours. My blood ran cold. North Star wasn't just a launch, it was the launch. a multi-market Q3 flagship initiative that had been in gestation longer than a baby elephant. If Aura Tech missed the milestone, their quarterly earnings would implode. Publicly, loudly, I stayed silent. Let her keep talking. They sent us a half-apology memo and an updated timeline that pushes us into late September. The legal team is reviewing the service agreement for breach. If we find cause, and we will, we're done with them. There it was, the phrase that cracked the earth in two. If you can provide these services, Maria said slowly, every word deliberate, we would like to open a discussion. My heart punched the inside of my ribs like it was trying to break free. I forced myself to breathe. This was the moment everything turned. And it had to be handled like a bomb disposal, steady hands. No sudden moves. Maria, I said, measuring each syllable, Electra's scope is extremely narrow. We don't offer managed services. We don't replace full-cycle vendors. I'm not asking for replacement, she snapped. I'm asking for a solution. We need the planning, the stakeholder alignment, the system rebuild. We'll handle ops. We just need the damn thing pointed the right direction before the board meeting next Friday. I said nothing. I'm not playing games, Sarah. We have budget, we have authority, and we have a disaster. I've cleared this conversation internally. I could hear the desperation behind her professionalism. Maria wasn't just tossing me a lifeline, she was clawing for one. I'll draft a proposal, I said finally. Strictly under Electra's scope, strategic guidance, diagnostic sprint, that's it. Yes, she said, fast, too fast, that's perfect. Send it to me tonight. I'll have procurement pre-authorize it. We hung up. I stared at the phone for a full minute, then two, and then I ran to the kitchen and threw up. It wasn't fear, not exactly, it was the weight of certainty. The point of no return kind. The moment when you stop hoping you'll get the chance and realize the spotlight's already on. By midnight, I had the proposal finished and formatted. 3 pages, 1 sprint, 6 deliverables, no fluff, no overreach. Just the precise scalpel cuts needed to resuscitate a dying product. I titled the file, Electra North Star Recovery Phase 1, PDF at 12:02 a.m. I hit send. No fireworks, no champagne, just the silent hum of my laptop fan and the sharp, undeniable thump of my pulse. The invitation had come, and I had answered. The call came in at 7:19 a.m., just as I was pouring milk into my cereal. I didn't recognize the number, but I recognized the panic before she even said her name. Sarah, it's Kim. Hang up. Kim Nguyen, former project manager, the only person at that place who ever understood the term critical path wasn't about hiking. They're losing their minds, she hissed. Sterling just called an all hands, like emergency level all hands. Aura Tech served notice this morning. 30 days, terminating the master service agreement. I froze. Milk overflowed the bowl, soaking into the placemat like it was trying to vanish. 30 days? I asked, voice hollow. They cited 4 documented breaches. 4. And get this, they sent the letter to legal and CC'd half their procurement chain. It's everywhere now. Sterling's frothing at the mouth. He said your name 6 times in 5 minutes. I didn't respond. My mind was sprinting, not running, sprinting through the timeline. The clause was airtight. I hadn't solicited. They came to me. I documented everything. I had the emails, the timestamps, the proposal, the scope. My lawyer had copies in triplicate. But still, Sterling screaming my name in a company-wide meeting? What exactly did he say? I asked, gripping the edge of the counter. He said you sabotaged the transition, Kim said. That the useless transition document you left behind was part of a premeditated strategy to poach the client. His words. He accused you of weaponizing your knowledge base and orchestrating a hostile takeover. I blinked. That man thinks I built a coup using Google Docs. Oh, she said, and legal's apparently drafting something. He said he won't let her get away with this. The line went quiet. Then, I'm sorry, I just thought you should know. I thanked her. We hung up. And then I stood in my kitchen, spoon limp in my hand, cereal soggy, and smiled. Not a happy smile. Nothing that soft. It was the kind of smile you give a fire you lit from across the street. Sterling wasn't just mad. He was rattled, and that meant one thing. He knew it was over. He just couldn't admit it to himself without someone else to crucify. Let him scream. Let him threaten. Let him print out 300 pages of legal tantrum. He still didn't get it. He lost the client the moment he treated them like an account number. He lost me the moment he treated my work like property. And now he was flailing in the wake of his own mediocrity, blaming the tide for going out. Still, I wasn't stupid. I called Jill. She picked up on the first ring. I assume you heard? I said, yup, it's all over my inbox. His general counsel CC'd me on a cease and desist draft. Amateurs. Do I need to be worried? Not unless you lied, which you didn't. Your paper trail is cleaner than a CDC lab, but we'll prepare the response. Keep calm. Let him drown in his own noise. I nodded, though she couldn't see it. My pulse had calmed now. I felt grounded. Cold, steady. Let Sterling throw his tantrum. I'd built my firm like a scalpel, and the first cut had landed. The email arrived at 9:04 a.m. sharp. Of course it did. Sterling always did love punctual theatrics. The subject line screamed desperation dressed as authority. Unauthorized interference with client relationship pending legal action. I opened it without ceremony, sipping my coffee like it was a war trophy. The body was a predictable mess of chest thumping, legal misinterpretation, and thinly veiled threats wrapped in passive voice. Words like egregious, unethical, we reserve the right, and my personal favorite, irreparable harm to the company brand. He even bolded that part. Twice. I forwarded the email to Jill without a word. Within 15 minutes, she replied with a single sentence. I've drafted our response. Would you like to review it, or should I just hit send? Send, I typed back. Her reply went out at 9:36 a.m. It was 84 words long. Dry, surgical, beautiful. It cited the exact clause Sterling had misread, non-solicitation of clients by the former employee. It included a timeline of Aura Tech's formal complaints against the company, beginning precisely 11 days after my departure. It highlighted that Electra Consulting offers services not present in the original vendor agreement. It closed with this line, which I would have tattooed on my forearm if I had less impulse control. Should you pursue this further, we are prepared to submit documentation to arbitration and seek recovery of legal fees per clause 22D. Click, send, silence. That was the sound of Sterling finally realizing he'd walked into a minefield wearing tap shoes. I leaned back in my chair, the cheap faux leather creaking under the weight of it all. Months of rage, fear, risk, and finally, closure. It didn't roar, it didn't explode. It settled like ash after a fire. At 10:12 a.m., a DocuSign notification landed in my inbox. Aura Tech Inc. Master Service Agreement signature required. I clicked. Reviewed, signed, $10 million. The number didn't even feel real. Not because of the money. Because of what it represented. Validation. Not a raise, not a plaque, not a pat on the head from a C-suite narcissist. Real, undeniable proof that the work, the relationships, the ideas, the value had always been mine. I wasn't just some cog that could be replaced. I was the engine. And now they could all choke on the smoke. The final invoice went out that afternoon. Jill made sure it was phrased impeccably. Aura Tech wired the first tranche within 48 hours. Sterling never replied. Not to the legal rebuttal. Not to the news of the contract loss. Not even to the LinkedIn announcement I posted a week later, featuring a short update from Electra Consulting, proud to begin a new partnership focused on precision, trust, and agility. More soon. It got 917 likes and 2 job offers. That night, I sat on the back porch with a glass of red wine, no music, no distractions, just me. The late summer breeze and the quiet hum of peace finally earned. I opened the contract one more time, not to check figures, but to look at the signature line. There it was. Maria's name, Aura Tech's seal. My own initials in the corner like a signature on a painting no one thought I could finish. And then I smiled. A sharp, private, teeth-bared smile. They took me for a cog. I became the hammer. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.